to the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas's Educator Summer Professional Development. Hi, I'm Morgan Ackley, Economic Education Advisor at the Dallas Fed. For those that have joined RPD in the past, we welcome you back. For those of you that are joining for the very first time, welcome. Teachers truly are the heart of Texas and our economy, and we are so excited to be able to provide you with video sessions this summer. You will hear from our expert economists, our economic education advisors, as well as external speakers in our summer series. Thank you for choosing to join us for your summer PD. We know that you have many choices. Whether you are pre-registered or not, you will have the option to be able to complete a survey at the very end of the video for continuing professional education credit. The summer series will be available for CPE credit from June 22nd through August 15th. Our summer series topics include COVID-19 and the economy, which features our own expert economists. You will also hear from our regional economists with economic updates from Houston, El Paso, San Antonio, and Dallas. Lastly, you'll also hear from our economic education advisors as well as external speakers about classroom resources and strategies that will expand your instructional toolbox for this coming school year. The agenda for this session is on the slide. Remember, once you have finished the video, you will need to complete the survey at the end in order to earn your continuing professional education credit. You can only receive credit once for each course. Today, you will hear from our presenter. At the end of the video, you will also be provided a link to complete the survey. The survey is password protected, so we will include that password at the very end of the video. After you've completed your survey, please allow up to 2 weeks to receive that certificate via email. Although we can't meet in person this year, we are here to provide support for any questions that you might have. Please feel free to reach out to our economic education team with any questions that you might have. Our contact information is available at the end of the video and also on the website. Today you will hear from Susan Kaiser, Senior Outreach Advisor at the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. Her work focuses on outreach to organizations and individuals within the 11th District, concentrating on professional development for educators. Innovative programs including Freedom Riders, Student Board of Directors, History Through an Economic Lens, and 100 Teens have been the hallmark of her career at the Fed. Responding to educator and student needs, Kaiser co-authored Navigate, Exploring College and Careers, the Federal Reserve, Everyday Economics, and a Scope and Sequence for the Texas Personal Financial Literacy Social Studies course. She has served as the ExxonMobil Executive in Residence at Lamar University, providing important economic information on monetary policy and the role of the central bank. Presentations for the Texas Council of Social Studies and National Council for the Social Studies have included the gold standard, energy, globalization, immigration, and financial literacy. She serves on the boards of the Texas Council for Economic Education, Texas Jumpstart, and also on the Texas State CTE Advisory Board.
To the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas Summer Series, my name is Susan Kaiser, and I will be your presenter for this segment, Educator Resources from the Federal Reserve. Before we get started, let's go to the first slide and look at our disclaimer. The views expressed are my own and do not necessarily reflect official positions of the Federal Reserve System. All right, so to those of you that have been with us before, we want to send you a hearty welcome. We hope that you're having a great summer and glad that you chose to join us for this professional development in our summer series. We hope that next year when we meet you, it'll be face-to-face and we'll get to see you and catch up on what you've been up to. For those of you that are new to our summer series, welcome. We're glad you could be here. A few important things we want you to know. All of the resources that we're going to show you today are available at no cost. And the second thing is that our economic education team loves working with our education community and our school districts around the district so that we can help you have the most relevant tools and resources for the job that you do every day in your classroom, teaching economics and economic concepts. So let's start with how to get to our resources. If you'll go to our website, dallasfed.org, on the landing page, you'll see across the top, Education and Outreach. Just click on that and it'll take you to the following page. So here we have our economic education page, and look on the left-hand side, we have a menu. You'll notice classroom resources are circled there. We're going to start looking at classroom resources today. One of the ones that we want to focus on first is our Everyday Economics series. So we'll just click on this. And this is our Everyday Economics. This is a set of 5 publications: Entrepreneurs, Globalization, the Federal Reserve, International Trade, and Money. These are high school resources. That is based upon the reading level as well as the content matter that is contained in each of these publications. They could be used for 8th grade students that are doing U.S. history, but again, you want to monitor that reading level to make sure it's not beyond what students are able to comprehend and feel comfortable with. So let's do a deeper dive into what these publications look like and why economics. So economics really is the story behind the story. Some of you are listening to this presentation and saying, well, this is interesting, but I don't teach economics. And again, economics is a story behind the story. It's a story about how groups of people, communities, cities, and states decide how to deal with the issue of scarcity. This issue of scarcity informs all the decisions that people make as individuals, communities, states, and even nations. It's a great foundation to have a discussion. So rather than talking about whether or not an event in history is right or wrong, or from a particular perspective, we can look at it from the framework of economics. So all societies, all groups of people are faced with scarcity. Because of the issue of scarcity, they must make a choice. When they make that choice, there is an opportunity cost. That opportunity cost is what they choose to give up. And when they make their final cost, they're going to discuss the benefits and the cost to that decision that has been made. All of us have unlimited wants and, unfortunately, limited resources. That holds true for individuals, you and I, but it also holds true for groups of people, countries, nations. And so one of the things we think about when we think about scarcity are the resources we have or our factors of production. Those include land and all the natural resources, labor or human capital, the skills each of us have, capital, financial capital, and then our entrepreneurial abilities, our innovation and risk-taking skills. When we combine those together, they can determine how much a country will grow, the standard of living for citizens, how much you and I might have individually in terms of assets or net worth. So Everyday Economics, 5 topics, all are available on our website at dallasfed.org/educate. Again, all of these publications are free and they can be downloaded and read online if you're teaching in a virtual environment. So what's inside of each of them? They all start out with a similar format. There's an overview of the topic. There's a historical background. There's going to be a current issue or current topic that's relevant to the title. We're going to have great minds or some historical components. We're going to have vocabulary, and then we're going to have lessons online that coordinate with that particular publication. So let's start with money. We talk about money a lot when we're talking about social studies. We talk about what it is, how it works, what it does for us. Remember that if we didn't have money, we would be forced to barter. And barter is challenging because it requires a few important things to take place. It requires a double coincidence of wants. You must want what I have, and I must want what you have. It means that the availability of good or service must be available when I have something to trade, and we have to agree to the terms of the trade. Barter can work, but it's very inefficient and requires a lot of time. Groups of people found out if they could have money, it would actually be a lot more efficient. So we define money by its uses in this publication. We talk about the characteristics of money, different types of money. We talk about the story of U.S. currency, the security of U.S. currency today, and why we are one of the most trusted currencies in the world. And we talk about inflation and deflation when the purchasing power of money changes. Think about, these are questions for your classroom as you think about utilizing this resource. Why did we trade for goods and not money? So when was there a time in history when we maybe didn't trust the money supply, and so we chose to trade for goods and not money? Or maybe there was a shortage of money, like during the colonial period. Here's a question: was the value of money consistent and dependable throughout history? We've heard of things like coins being clipped if they were made of gold or silver. Not everybody was honest that was a money changer. We had state banking after the Civil War in the United States, and some of those banks were not scrupulous in the way that they handled their money. And there's connections between instability at a political nature and the global banking. International trade. This is a topic that we're going to talk about across social studies, history, geography, economics, and government. So in this book, we're going to talk about the benefits and cost of trade. We're going to talk a little bit about how trade allows specialization, how we have absolute and comparative advantage. Even though we might have an absolute advantage in producing something in the United States, maybe it's to our benefit to see if somebody else has a comparative advantage, let them produce that good and trade. We're going to talk about barriers to trade, making sure that students understand tariffs, quotas, voluntary restrictions, and export subsidies. And then we'll talk about trade agreements and the impact they've had on the global world. We'll also talk about the history of trade, the navigation laws in U.S. history, the War of 1812, Smoot-Hawley, NAFTA, Brexit, and current events today, and how that impacts our willingness to trade or not trade with other countries. Globalization. Great definition for globalization is the free flow of goods and services, financial investment and capital, and people and labor across borders. When this criteria is met, we are operating in an era of global integration. The first time we identified this was early in the 19th century. The second time was following World War II. What happens when economies become interconnected? What are the benefits and what are the costs? If we depend upon another country to supply a necessary commodity or product, what happens if relations deteriorate between us and that company? These are all questions you can explore with your students and with this publication. We'll also talk about colonization by European countries, a change in policy of the UK after the American Revolution, policy during the Great Depression, and immigration and naturalization laws. Entrepreneurs. So when we think of entrepreneurs, we're going to talk about innovation, risk-taking, protection of intellectual properties through items like copyright, trademark, patents, and the different types of firms that we find within the marketplace. We'll also have an opportunity to learn more about some entrepreneurs that may be well known to your students, including Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, and Bill Gates. In your classroom, topics of discussion can include America as a country of innovation and opportunity. How has that impacted the growth of our country and our success financially as a leader in the world of innovation? We have legal structures that support risk-taking for entrepreneurs, property protection, as well as bankruptcy laws. And we have diversity of entrepreneurs, encourage students to research the history and learn about unknown contributors that may not show up in our normal history books. Our final publication, our Federal Reserve publication, is our newest, and it's going to talk about a number of things: the creation of central banks in the U.S., the structure of the Federal Reserve, the responsibilities of the Federal Reserve, including monetary policy, financial stability, our payment system, supervision and regulation of banks, and our role as fiscal agent for the U.S. government. In the classroom, we want you to utilize this publication to talk about GDP, gross domestic product, unemployment, and the consumer price index. We have lessons online that will help you to talk about this in your classroom. Also talk about the history of the U.S. financial system, the current structure of the Federal Reserve, and an understanding of monetary policy, particularly important in this particular time period when we look at what we're doing as the Federal Reserve today to make sure we have a stable financial system and the new monetary tools we're using to implement monetary policy. We also have a lesson called Take a Seat at the Table. This entire lesson is available again on our website with procedures and a slide presentation for you to utilize in your classroom. In this activity, students will identify the role of the FOMC in creating monetary policy. They will understand the origin and structures of the Federal Open Market Committee. They will read the Beige Book and assess the risks to the economy, and then create a Federal Open Market Committee statement that includes a policy recommendation. That is all of our high school offerings. And now I want to talk about a publication, Navigate, that is for middle school as well as high school. Navigate Exploring College and Career is really for students to think about what do they want to do as they go through high school. Is there an endorsement that they want? Is there a particular career that they want to think about? And then charting their plan for that future. And so this publication has two components. The student workbook that is shown on this slide, and a teacher workbook that has all of the procedure documents in it. Again, this is available to order for a printed publication, or it can be downloaded online. There are 6 units to this publication. We start with exploring careers, then we ask the question, what about college? And when we talk about college, we're referring to any type of education post-secondary. So that can be a certification program, it can at a community college, it can be an associate's degree, it can be a 4-year degree, or it can be a master's or PhD. We want students to think about how do they get in. So what do they need to do while they're in high school to make sure that they can get into the program post-secondary that they want to participate in. We want to look at how much does college cost, how to pay for college, and then we want students to think about their future path and what that will look like when they successfully met their educational goals. So I want to share the first unit of this, so exploring careers. This is what the front page of each one of these units will look like. They will have a career path on it. It will show a median wage, growth for this particular occupation, and then some fun facts about education and careers. The career on this one is registered nurse. It says, I've always wanted to pursue a career in medicine. I earned a bachelor's degree and was hired as soon as I graduated. I enjoyed the flexibility of my career. I work long hours, but I also have 3-day weekends. I enjoy my time off and like to spend it with my friends and family. 2 years ago, I decided to go back to school to get my master's and became a certified registered nurse anesthetist. It was the best decision of my career. So we want to show students a couple of things with this. We want to show them that they can stagger their education, so they can graduate high school, get a bachelor's degree, work for a while, and then pursue additional degrees if they like, and that they're not tied to one career forever. On this page, we want students to think about human capital, those skills or talents that they already may have. And so we ask them to list 5 skills or talents that they already have, and then to think about 3 ways that they might develop those knowledge, skills, and talents. Most of us can think pretty easily about at least 2 or 3 talents we have, but coming up with 5 may be challenging for your students. If they have a hard time with this, let them pick a partner and help them discuss not only their talents and skills, but how they could work on further developing those talents and skills. This is an example of the different types of careers that are available coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This does not align perfectly with the endorsements that the state of Texas has created, but we'd like to use it because it gives students an opportunity to think about careers that they may not be familiar with. Most students in middle school and high school have a limited exposure to careers outside of those they may see with family members or those in their direct community. And so we encourage them to really do a deep dive into what their options are out there. This is the Bureau of Labor Statistics website and the Occupational Outlook Handbook. If you haven't used this before, I would recommend that you utilize this in your classroom. It has a lot of areas, not just the Occupational Handbook, but also student resources on career interest, paying for school, and different data tools to utilize. One of the areas that I like to show to students is engineering. When I was in the classroom, many of my students wanted to get engineering degrees, but not all of them had the financial wherewithal to pay for 4 or 5 years of college straight out of high school. And so I encourage students to think about stair-stepping their education and their career. So this shows that I could go and get an associate's degree as a civil engineering technician. The median wage for that is $53,000. I could work in that area for a few years and then maybe go back and get my bachelor's degree, or maybe even work for a company that might provide tuition reimbursement or tuition assistance. The second thing I really like about this website is it gives us details about the job. If you just look at the picture for a civil engineering technician, you might think that the technician works outside. But if we look closely at work environment, we'll see that civil engineer technicians work in offices where they help civil engineers plan and design projects. It's important that students think about where they're going to work and how they're going to spend their day. Once students have done the research, we take them back to the publication where they're going to fill in their career choice, explain what they do, describe where they work, how much education is required, how much they'll earn yearly, and what that translates to in terms of a weekly wage. We share with students the important thing to know, which is that the more education or skill that you have, the less likely you are to be unemployed. That's an important thing for people to realize, especially as we think about our generation today and the fact that they may have many different careers throughout their lifetime. And then finally, we like to give this an activity where students can actually discuss with the class what their outcomes are going to be based upon their education. So I ask students to take a piece of paper, write down their degree, their career, how much schooling is required, and then how much their median wage is. Then I ask the students to get in group, everybody with a certification in one group, everybody with an associate's degree, a 4-year degree, a master's degree, and a PhD. And what the students will find is not everybody that has a 4-year degree earns the same, but they all pay the same for tuition. They will find out that some of the students with certification, they actually earn more than those with a 4-year degree. And that creates a lively conversation for our students as they think about the traditional road to 4-year degrees as the only option out of high school. And then finally, each unit has an assessment. We know that as a classroom teacher, it's important that you have an assessment and grades to put in your gradebook. So we want to make sure that we provide that as part of this publication. I wanted to show you Unit 2 primarily because I want you to look at this career path. So the first career path we had was the medical field. This career path looks a little bit different. This career path is for HVAC or heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And I'll read you a short component of it. As a senior in high school, I didn't know exactly what an HVAC tech was, but after talking with my career counselor, this sounded like a great fit for me. I like working with my hands, solving problems, and fixing machinery. The community college offers a 16-month program that prepared me for my state exam and certification. Each day my job is different, new locations, new problems. I enjoy the challenge and one day hope to open my own business. The median wage for this career is $43,000. So we want students to know two things, that absolutely vocations that are not jobs that are a result of not a 4-year degree can be great careers, but we want to recommend to them that they take that state exam and get that certification if that's the career they're going to pursue. We also utilize the Big Futures website. This is a great website. It has lots of information on careers, career exploration, paying for college, looking at different college information, and we really encourage you to spend some time on this website if you use this publication with your students. The next publication I want to share with you is Building Wealth. Again, this talks about financial literacy. You'll notice that the topics here are learning the language, budgeting, saving and investing, building credit and controlling debt, and protecting your wealth. If this is a topic that you're interested in, I'm going to encourage you to watch one of our other videos on our financial literacy tools. And Building Wealth has interactive lesson plans, a teacher procedure guide, assessments, and the publication is also available in Spanish. Again, if you're interested in learning more about financial education, I would encourage you to watch that video. So those are all of our publications, but those aren't the only things that we do with educators here at the Dallas Fed. We also have events. Every year we host an evening at the Fed with a guest economist. We have an economic scholars program that is undergraduate students that do presentations and their own research. Those presentations are peer reviewed and the audience members come and listen. We are beginning a program, Women in Economics. We have a summer signature series, which we're participating in right now, and then Global Perspectives, which is interviews that happen at the bank with our president, Mr. Rob Kaplan. Those are open to the public as well as to educators. We hope that you'll look online to find out when these are happening or sign up to get emails. And we'd love to have you participate in all of these, either in person or virtually. The other thing we want to remind you about is that we love doing customized trainings for your district. So we do train the trainers. If you have a group of teachers that want to know how to use Navigate in the classroom, we're happy to do that training with them. All of our trainings are available at no cost. We do topics on economics and the economic strand that runs through social studies through grades K through 12. We also do financial literacy and, of course, college and career classes. So if any of those are of interest to you, or if there's a topic on there that we haven't mentioned, please reach out to us. We're happy to meet with you and discuss opportunities for working with your educators in your district. We also want to let you know that we do have a tour available. This is part of our Economy in Action group. Currently, it is closed to visitors, but we have a new team member, Allison Clark, who is responsible for this, and she is working on setting up not only virtual tours, but would love to meet with educators to find out what their needs are and what topics they would like to discuss when they come on tours. If you're interested in being a part of a focus group and working with Allison, please make a note of that, and I'm going to include her email at the end of this presentation. Also wanted to let you know if you want more information on the tours, again, it's available under tours. It's the Economy in Action, and all the information you need there about setting up tours and reaching out to our team is there. Again, I want to encourage you to go to the dallasfed.org website. Not only is that where you're going to be able to find our resources in education and outreach, but there's lots of great information about what's happening in the economy. So you'll notice this is our most recent website. We have our COVID-19 updates. We have weekly economic indicators and the latest on what's happening across our district in terms of the economy, and the tools that we're using in monetary policy to ensure the stability of our financial system. That concludes all of the resources from the 11th District, but I would be remiss if I didn't share with you our website, federalreserveeducation.org. This website contains resources from all 12 of the Federal Reserve districts across the country. And so I picked out some highlights that I want to share with you. And it'll take just a few moments to do this. So this is what our landing page looks like. These resources can be sorted by audience. So grade level, you see up there on the right-hand side, K4, 5 through 8, 9 through 12, college and adult. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see not only can you sort this by audience, but you can sort by the type of resource you want. Do you want a publication? Do you want a lesson? What is the topic that you're looking for? And then you're going to filter those. I've done some filtering, and so I want to share with you some of my favorite resources and the Federal Reserve Bank that they're from. So these are 50 Nifty Econ cards. They come already printed, and they have definitions as well as commonly found words in economics. These were originally designed for elementary age students, but I found that they work very successfully in the middle school and high school economics class. Really important as we try to create vertical alignment that we use consistent definitions so that when students are thinking about words, they're not having to remember different definitions, but they have consistency. So again, these can be ordered online. They are free, no charge for them. Another middle school resource is from the Cleveland Federal Reserve Bank. This is the Escape from Barter Island. And so this talks about wants and needs and also about the role of money in the economy, barter, and trade. Richmond Federal Reserve has a middle school activity. This is a short activity that could be used as a lead up to something like Navigate. So it is just 2 pages, but it lets students start thinking about where they might want to live, how much is that going to cost, and so what kind of career might they need to think about in order to accommodate the lifestyle that they would like to enjoy. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta has Katrina's Classroom. This is a series of lessons that talk about decision making for middle school students. Then I want to share with you some of our high school resources. One of the most popular resources that we have is from the Atlanta Federal Reserve Banks. These are infographics that cover a number of topics. They have expanded this now to include 13 different topics. These are great resources to use in your classroom and great decoration. Even if you're in a virtual classroom, these would be great to put on the wall behind you as you talk about economic concepts and ideas. Each of these infographics also has lessons that go with them to dive into more information and more detail on the concepts that are being discussed. Our Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia has leveraged the fact that they are in a historical city and have great publications that talk about the first bank of the United States and the second bank. If you're teaching either 8th grade U.S. history or AP U.S. history, these are great resources. Not only do they talk about the banks themselves, but they talk about the key historical figures that were part of the discussions, political discussions that happened during these time periods and the roles that they played in the creation of the bank. We also have the Federal Reserve System in its first 100 years, the debate between state and national banking crisis that happened during the Civil War era, and then a little bit about Benjamin Franklin and the birth of paper money. Again, all of these are publications that can be ordered or can be downloaded online. They all have lessons online that go with these publications. The Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland has a great publication called Follow the Yellow Brick Road, and it is just what you think, a monetary policy journey through the wonderful Wizard of Oz. This talks about the gold standard and the cross of gold speech, as well as silver. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York has come out with some great educational comic books. If you've been in education for a while, you may be familiar with comic books that we had 10 or 15 years ago. All of these comic books have been updated. They're all downloadable, and they're available in English and Spanish. Talk about the Federal Reserve System, monetary policy, and the story of interest and supervision. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis has some great resources. This is about thinking about College 101. So how do I navigate college? How do I find a college? How do I think about financial aid? How do I fill out the FAFSA? So this is a journey through that process of selecting college and thinking about how to pay for it. Lots of other Federal Reserve high school resources. We have FRED, Econ Lowdown, and EconWise. For those of your students that like podcasts, I want to let you know that we have some great podcasts out there, many of them created by the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco. Everything from Does College Matter to 10 Steps to Earning Awesome Grades While Studying Less. Certainly something that most of our high school students would be interested in knowing more about. We also have some DVDs. So the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia, again, has created a DVD, but they're also now YouTubes. Each of those segments have been put onto the YouTube platform so that students can stream them in our virtual classroom. And so lots of good resources there. And finally, a simulation. So your students pretend that they are the chair of the Fed and work through this simulation, see what happens if they can get confirmed for another term as chair of the Federal Reserve. Our Richmond Fed has an online course in Invest in What's Next. This is really the step after Navigate. This is what students think about life after high school. So how much am I going to have to earn? What kind of career is going to allow me to have the lifestyle that I would like to have? Great resources, all available online, and like all of our resources, free. The St. Louis Federal Reserve has a number of online courses. All of these are accessible through the Econ Lowdown portal. I encourage you, if you are interested in this, to go to that portal, sign up, and walk through that process. Great thing about this is that not only does it include the information, has pre-tests, post-tests, and surveys and discussion boards. And finally, although I know most of you are high school or middle school teachers, I would be remiss if I didn't share with you the elementary resources that are available. This one is from the Richmond Fed, and it talks about money, its characteristics, how to count it, and a little bit of information on the history of money. Again, this is a publication that can be ordered or can be downloaded. We have a publication from the Cleveland Fed called Great Minds Think. Again, it's going to focus on helping students understand money, thinking about money, understanding needs versus wants, how to earn money, how to spend it. This publication, again, is downloadable, and it's also available in Spanish. And then finally, another primer from the St. Louis Federal Reserve, stories talking about helping students understand benefits and costs, making choices, and needs versus wants. Finally, the Kansas City Federal Reserve has their financial fables. These are a great resource because not only do they read them, but you can read it to yourself, or they can access these online, and the fable will actually read to students while it shows the words on the screen. So for those students that may need a little bit of help with the reading, this is a great resource at the elementary level. And I would be remiss if I did not let you know about all of our Q&As that we have for numerous elementary level storybooks. Each of these stories that you see here and many, many others that you'll find online have what we call a question and answer sheet. And these are guided readings for parents or teachers to use in the classroom or at home. One of the things that we find is that parents are more likely to read at home if they have some help in understanding what are the key points that we want them to talk about when they're reading with their child. And so this is an example. These are usually one page, and so they're going to bring up some of the key points. So this is, why can't you buy a dinosaur with a dime? One of the questions a parent can ask is, where did Pete keep his money? Well, Pete kept his money in a jar. What would be a better place for Pete to keep his money? And so we can talk about banks and what they are and how we can keep our money there. What does savings mean? What does spending mean? And we talk about, after buying the first dinosaur, Pete had only 30 cents left. How did Pete get more money to save? So not only are we talking about financial concepts and the ideas of saving, spending, but we're helping students think about the sequence of the story. Did they pay attention? Did they remember what they read? So I hope you enjoyed our presentation today. Here's a to-do list for you. Don't forget to take the survey. That'll be an important step in getting credit for participating in this presentation today. Make sure that you bookmark www.dallasfed.org on your computer. Please check out all of our resources that we offer at the 11th District. Also, please go to federalreserveeducation.org and look at some of those resources that I shared with you today. Share these resources with a colleague, and most of all, I hope you have a great summer. It's been a pleasure visiting with you virtually. Hope to hear from you soon. If you have any questions, here's my email, my colleague Morgan, and then for tours, Allison Clark, who's in charge of our tour program. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining our summer virtual PD session. Please use the link and the survey password at the end of the video to complete the survey and questions. In order to receive that CPE credit, you will need to complete the survey after watching this video, and please allow up to 2 weeks to receive that certificate via email. We look forward to hosting you at one of our 4 locations next year and continuing to support you virtually in the meantime. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to anyone on our economic education team. Thank you for joining us this summer.